Okay, you have to take your time, and you're doing research, not search. So you want to learn as much as you can about your ancestors, not just who they were, but where they were living, what was going on at the time, what were the laws. You're going to be using a lot of records. So the question is, well, who's taking the record? Why are they taking the record? Who's writing the information down? And who's indexing it? Who's then trying to read the handwriting of the person who wrote it down, who wrote what they thought they heard? And you start with yourself and your family, and then you just work back generation by generation using all the members of each of the family. So if you have your aunt and uncle, you also look for all the cousins and any other aunts and uncles you might have. How did people spell it? And then, like I say, then did they know how to spell their name? Literacy varied by time period and location. So you always want to pay attention to what time and what place are you researching. And I went to school with two brothers in second grade who argued on how they should spell their last name. And they lived together. And for my Meissner relatives, over the years, I've found at least 20 different spellings of Meissner, most extreme of which on the 1850 census in Pittsburgh came out as Mason. So either they had a strong accent, or again, what the numerator heard and what he wrote. So you have to be open to any sort of spelling, sort of sound it out. Vowels are all interchangeable, so you focus a little more on the consonants and just how might it have sounded. Some search engines will look at a number of different alternate spellings. Others, you have to provide the different spellings. Yeah, you have to understand DNA. You know, you get half from your father and half from your mother, which means you got a quarter from your grandparents, an eighth on average from your great-grandparents. And did the right people test? And are you looking where your cousins that you don't know tested as well? So you have to sort of fish in a number of different ponds. In the case of Native Americans, in many cases, not too many of them have submitted their DNA. So you could be related to somebody, but they and their descendants have submitted any DNA, or it may be too many generations back that the amount you inherited from any particular one is just so small. But the DNA can help a lot in identifying individuals. We were just talking earlier about you find John or Jane Does. In other cases that they can identify people. I just saw recently from 9/11, they're still trying to identify remains they've found there. And in some cases, they get some DNA from that, that can sort of help with that. So it is a tool. It's not the only tool. And you again have to pay attention to how much DNA you match with whoever this potential cousin might be. And you really want to the extent possible, try to follow that up with other documentation. The DNA test, again, it's a personal thing. It's not just your DNA. I share half my DNA with my sister. So I have my sister's DNA as well. So you want to, in some cases, be careful. And if you're going to ask somebody to test, make sure they're aware of all that might happen with their DNA, because once, like anything on the internet now, once you hit send and it goes out, it's no longer in your control. So yes, you want to encourage potential cousins to test, but when you ask them, you always want to be careful to make sure they understand it's informed consent and the advantages and the drawbacks there can be with DNA. You'll find cases where who you thought was your parent was not your parent, that for one reason or another it may have been someone else. Or there's cases that people just got switched in the hospital at birth, and there was one fellow all his life he thought he was Irish, and then after he passed away, his daughters started testing and found no, they were Jewish. And they traced it back to at the hospital, it had invariably switched which baby came home with the parents. So, you can call that as a positive or a negative, and you always have that issue of, was your father or your grandfather exactly who you thought it was? So you do have to be aware of that. So certainly you'd like as many people as possible of your relatives to test, with the informed consent. And again, there's more than one place where people can submit their DNA for testing. So you want to fish in all those different ponds. You want to do it in Ancestry. In Houston, you have a company that does a lot of DNA. They work with family tree DNA. And there's MyHeritage, which has a bigger focus on Europe. And you have issues over there. I just had a presentation with our local German group at the Dallas Library on German DNA. And Germans are very concerned about privacy because of the history of the country. So, you know, you'd like as many people as possible to test, but again, with informed consent. Well, good evening. I don't know if I can live up to that introduction or not. I would really consider myself sort of an intermediate in terms of artificial intelligence. There are some folks that are a lot more experienced than I, but I think approaching it from folks like us that are sort of learning about it, there's an advantage to not knowing all there is to know, of which there's an awful lot. Tom talked a little bit about DNA, and you saw some of the examples there. That was, 10 years ago, that was the big thing in genealogy. It still is of great value. But now, just in the last couple years, starting with that release of this ChatGPT, now we have artificial intelligence, and it's sort of here, there, and everywhere. A lot of people are intimidated by it, and you shouldn't be. The idea is if you control the input and you tell it exactly what to do, then the odds of it hallucinating are much, much less. So I'll start with my disclaimer. I'll be mentioning some products and my opinions of them. Nobody's paid me to do any of them. Nobody's giving me anything. In fact, all the toys I use they're free versions of it, and that's what I've been primarily using. So just because I mention something here doesn't mean you should run out and use it or buy it or whatever. So there is a handout to accompany this that I provided to Tom. And I can make it available online for folks as well, because as you page through it, you'll see there's lots of links that I provide as well. And if you send me an email, I have my address up at the end as well. I can send you a copy with the caveat I'm leaving for England on Sunday and will be gone for 10 days. My other hobby is trains, and it's the bicentennial of passenger railways in England this year. So I'll be going with a group for that. So that's the handout. It's everywhere. Now, I walked into my Kroger's one day, and here's Coca-Cola co-created with artificial intelligence. And I said, what? Huh? Coca-Cola? It's a secret formula hidden away in a vault in Atlanta. What's this? Well, the artificial intelligence, and had I known at the time, I would have rearranged some of the bottles, was a lot for the marketing and supposedly a little bit for the flavor. Because if you go into some of those more modern machines, you can pick your flavors. I want a cherry Coke or a chocolate Coke. That's recorded information that reports back to the mothership in Atlanta, and they know which flavors are popular. Where am I at here? And then if you're searching for a razor, and there's electric razor now powered by artificial intelligence, really? So it's everywhere. So let's talk a little bit just about the terminology so you'll know it when you see it. So artificial intelligence, the ability of a computer to perform tasks commonly associated with intelligent beings. And there was the Turing test at one point that you're interacting with this machine, and how do you know it's a person on the other end or you or a computer? You'll hear about large language models. This has been in the news a lot. It sort of scours the entire internet for everything and anything it can find, some of it violating copyright laws, and there's lawsuits going on about that, to learn all it can about all what's on the web. And of course, we know everything on the web is true, right? Yes, that's what it knows. So Blaine Bettinger, the genetic genealogist, has pointed out these models generally, emphasis on generally, they don't care if the output they create or provide is factually correct. Only it's the most probable output based on the input. So again, you want to be able to control the input and the task you want it to do. And it's ChatGPT, that's generative pre-trained transformers. And again, the idea, it just goes out and has been sucking up all the data it can find so that it can respond either in text or images or music or computer code or websites as a human potentially could. And then there's these research agents which will go and dig a little bit deeper, and often they will have access to the internet, at least the parts that aren't password protected, as these other models like ChatGPT knows everything that happened up to last year, has no idea what's happened this year because it hasn't been trained on that. And deep reasoning, you can in some cases ask the model to do that, and it'll take longer. In most cases, you ask it to do something and it comes right back with it amazingly quickly. But sometimes, well, give me some time to work on it and I'll get back to you. And it's doing some searching and coming out, hopefully with sources. And that's the other thing. You can't believe anything they say. You have to validate everything they do. But you want to look for the ones that at least tell you where are they getting the information. So you're probably already doing it if you're doing anything with genealogy at all. 10 years ago, Family Search, one of the big vendors, is going through and they got a bunch of obituaries. And they said, how are we going to index all these? People take forever to read them. Well, they could teach it for different parts of speech. So you can see it's very yellow, Cullen High School, Burgess Medical Center, Shipper Funeral Home, and that's a place. There are ones where you probably can't see here, nieces, nephews, son, husband, people, relationship, names of people. So it could pull those out even 10 years ago, help with the indexing. And now they've used it in what they call the full text search, which there's been recent changes of that just in the past year. It was an experiment until this year. And think of what you do when you're presented with a document. When you're looking at it and said, oh, what is it? What language is it in? Is it written left to right or right to left? Depends on what language is it. Is it printed or is it handwritten? These are all things the computer has to figure out and then go through and create some sort of an index to it. And just as of last month, when you go into Family Search, now it will do all its records that they have digitized. So you can use that. You start out, you want to keep it simple. Always start broad searching first. Maybe just give it a name and a place, and then see what you get. And then you can be more specific as you go along. Maybe just look at a name or keywords. Keywords are often a good way to go because titles, somebody has to make a title. Somebody for a newspaper writes an article and then the editor creates the title, not the person who wrote the article. So keywords sometimes can be a better search than that. Variations of names and spelling. Spelling is optional in genealogy. Did your ancestor know how to spell their name? They're giving it to somebody. What is that person hearing and what are they writing? And then some poor indexers trying to read what that person wrote to come up with it. And I was pointing out that for my Meissner name, in the 1850 census in Pittsburgh, it's spelled Mason, M-A-S-O-N. I have 20 different variations of Meissner I've found in records. The only letter they have in common is the M. So I'm going to look for Meissners in Bavaria as my place. And I'm going to pick Bavaria before it was Germany, because that's what I know my great-grandfather was there. And it does a search and says, well, I found 93 examples of Meissners in Bavaria. And here's a naturalization petition for Pittsburgh, my hometown. I know where they settled. And I could see Andrew Meissner, that's my great-great-grandfather, in Bavaria. Now, over here on the left, as I say, you could drill down more. There are filters that you can fine-tune your search, but first look and see what you got. And you can also get tips on searching. If you've done Google searches or any sort of web search, it's sort of the standard things. You can put words in quotes if you want them to be stuck together, a plus sign to force that in there, minus, no, I don't want all the John Smiths, I want the Terry Smiths. So either a question mark will replace any given letter, often with vowels, or often I'll use the asterisk. And you can put in the middle as well for my Meissners, an M, an N, and an R maybe, and we'll go from there. So there's the actual document. This is his naturalization petition, and it's highlighting the Meissners and the Bavarias. But now what you have over on the right is it's done a transcript. The computer has read it and came up with its version of what it thinks is there. And there's a pencil there. You can click, and if you find something wrong, you can change it. So you can do that. They no longer having people going through indexing. They let the computer do the first shot and then let the people come back. So I can look here and see that the Bernhard Meissner, your petitioner, is a Germany. Now, he may have been German, but he's not a Germany. So if I look in the document, your petitioner is a native of Germany, heretofore a subject of the King of Bavaria. But the computer had a hard time sorting that out. So I can click on the icon. It'll say, pick a word, and you can edit. So I'm going to pick that Germany, and it pops up, and I'll type in front of it, native of Germany. And now we look at the transcript that the computer has that correction in there. So we're helping the computer. You can also download any document you find. You can get with or without the highlights, with or without the transcription or the citation. You always want the citation, because later on you're going to get conflicting information. You're going to say, where did I get this? Oh, I got that on Ancestry or Family Search or wherever it may have been. You can also, the little icon on the right, copy it to your computer clipboard and then paste it and then do whatever you want to do with it that way. It's not just English. It does a number of languages. Here I had it look for Hernandez, just picking a Spanish name in Spain. And here's some nobility records from 1547 to 1739. There's the document. I can't read that. Can you? The computer has its best shot. It's in Spanish. No kidding. It's a Spanish record. But there's ways you can use artificial intelligence to translate. But I can ask it to summarize the document. And it says, well, it's from 1726, and various residents from the locality are affirming that Miguel and Francisco Hernandez are the only public recognized hidalgos, the noblemen by birth. And all these other witnesses says, yeah, I know they're the only ones, or no, I don't know of any others. That's what's all written in there in 1726. Now, Ancestry, that was Family Search. They've come up with something similar. They're all competing with each other, and now they will do transcriptions. Handwritten or printed documents, letters, journals, other records. You have to upload it to the site, and you have to have given them money. You have to be a World Explorer or World Deluxe membership. You can't do it just with the library account. It'll do multiple languages. And the difference from Family Search, it's things they have found and digitized. You can provide the document. You have to upload it to Ancestry, put it in a person's gallery, as it's called. It'll only take a single page. I'll show you later ways where you have multiple pages. And you have to tell us some basic information about the document. And then you click on transcribe. So there I uploaded, that's that same petition, and I provide some basic information about it. And on the left, you can see there's the transcribe button. So I said, okay, Ancestry computer, transcribe this. So there it is, and it goes through. So now it's got your petitioner is a native of Germany, King of Bavaria, and was therefore a subject of that he has. So it still has a problem with the Germany and King of Bavaria. There's no edit on this. You can't change it on Ancestry like you could on Family Search. But you've got the transcription you can download and then work from there. And it's all over the place now in Ancestry. This is even from 2004, anything with DNA, image scanning, colorization, how you might be related to somebody else on the member, story builders, and this document transcription they just released in May And somehow the National Genealogical Society didn't discover it till last month and started promoting it. And I said, huh, it's there. I've been using it. It'll also do things like you put your names up on the tree. It'll suggest the parents of somebody in your tree based on what other people have uploaded to Ancestry. And again, we know everything on the internet is true, right? Those, I put question marks before my great-great-grandparents because I'm not even sure if they really are Patrick and Jane. MyHeritage is another big site. They're doing the same sorts of things. And they have sort of led the way with images that you can colorize, enhance. They have things called live memory, deep nostalgia. Well, they'll talk a bit about the history of a person, and you can work from there. This is my great-grandfather, and one of his youngest sons was a professional photographer. So there's the picture he took on the left, and I gave it to MyHeritage and say, colorize it. And it did. And notice on the bottom left, it did put a little watermark on there because you want to say that's not the original. This has been done by the computer, and it's not a restoration like if you would take it to a photography shop or use something like Paint Shop or whatever. It's created a whole new image that is similar to that. And you look at his badge, is a bit different. So if you're going to display this anywhere, this would probably be the way to do it. Here's the original, and then here's the colorized. Because you just put the colorized up, people believe that's it. And they do some cases, have been recently, genealogy and artificial intelligence is a good Facebook place to go. And somebody put up a picture and they add a whole extra person to the picture. Where'd they come from? Here's another group I got from one of my mother's cousins. They kindly gave me the names of everybody on there. These are all my O'Haras. But on the bottom there, it's now been colorized and enhanced. So I've got the two watermarks. And over there, there's my grandfather sort of crouching, my mother standing next to him, and my grandmother behind holding my Aunt Dorothy. But again, that'd probably be the way to show it. That's not an original picture from back then. And you can see Uncle Bert, who was the photographer in his uniform. So this was taken in the late 1910s. And now it does this live memory. So there's me on my tricycle with my black eye, because I thought Superman could fly out of the crib. Why couldn't I? And now MyHeritage says, oh, we could animate this for you. So if we do that, there I go. So this never happened. The car's going backwards. I got to animate something, but that's what artificial intelligence can do with a photo. So believe it or not. So how can it help with genealogical research? You can ask artificial intelligence, what can you do? How should I tell you what I want you to do? So I can go into ChatGPT, and you get the little line on the bottom. So this is not Google where you get the one line and you just put in a few words. This is chat. You can put in sentences. I've seen one case that the prompt is 2 pages long, and you can chat and go back and forth. So I'm just asking ChatGPT up at the top, how can you help with my genealogical records? And it tells me. It says I can be surprisingly powerful assistant. This is it's talking about itself. I can help find and understand records, and this is all the output it gave me. I can suggest where to look. I can help locate online resources. I can explain documents, what details a 19th century passenger list might have. I can do transcription of documents, we saw some examples of that, and translations. Standardized place names. Go in and look at different names of occupations, I think it'll show you. Compare multiple profiles, this gets pretty advanced. Timeline creation, tell it everything you know about an ancestor, and it'll put it all in order, and then you can look to see where do I have gaps. Or wait a minute, he wasn't 8 years old when his son was born, so I gotta check something there. Give you suggestions for relationships, explain historical events. Why did my ancestors leave Ireland? They were famine immigrants to a large extent. Why did my Germans leave Germany? They couldn't get married. There were strict laws on how to get married. He got the servant girl pregnant. The story came from the family is father threw him out, but mother had money and gave the money to go to America. Well, mother was already dead. But they decided to come to America. Old occupations and terms. What was it? What's a Cooper? What do Coopers do? Reconstruct locations, give you maps of where might this place be. This is all ChatGPT telling me what it could do if I ask it. Historical scenes, period record clothing, family tree graphics. You give it relationships, it'll build the document for you. Maps. Image enhancement, as we've seen before, sharpening, enhancing, colorizing, getting rid of scratches, zoom and focus. But again, it's generating a new image. It's not just changing the current one. So you have to be careful with that. And it can combine images, and I'll show you an example of that. Make old family photos clear, visualization of historic events. Grave markers, you can take a picture of it and try to enhance it compared to try to do a rubbing, which do you really want to rub gravestones or not? Timeline graphics again, help you with planning. I'll show you an example of that. Cite the sources. Cite the sources. You always again want to do that because this is like a study of history. And you want to know where did you get that information? How do you know that's true? And it can help you. So everybody will join like that Facebook group, Genealogy Artificial Intelligence says, I'm new. What's the best tool? Well, what do you want to do? And I had artificial intelligence draw that picture for me. I said, show me a handyman looking at his toolbox trying to figure out what tool to use. And it created that. So I'm not an artist. On the left are sort of the general purpose ones. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Copilot, Meta. On the right are more specific ones. Perplexity can search the current web and will give you documented sources. Transcribus will just transcribe but not translate a document. And then Google Translate, DeepL, Yandex can all translate it depending on what you want. If you're trying to do Russian or the Russian older languages, Yandex would be a way to go compared to Google. So here's ChatGPT. And again, it knows everything up to September 30th of last year. So you can't ask it about the inauguration, for example. Generative, pre-trained, transformative. Okay, so there's the training set. Now they just came out last month with version 5. They're continually updating these things all the time. And one of the things they've added now is another way to manipulate images, which I'll show you an example. But again, factual accuracy is not guaranteed. It usually doesn't cite sources. So it'll only look for recent stuff if it's things it hasn't quite known. It has tools. There's a translation tool you can ask it to use. You can use this thing called DALL-E to make images. I'll show you an example of that. Write for me will write things. These things can write computer code. And I'd be kind of reluctant to run it if I were a business. I think I'd still want to hire a programmer because what other things might be in that code? But if you're doing a web page or something, it can write it out for you. And translation, and yeah, it can do Chinese and Japanese. I was impressed with that. So here I said, create an image of a small Bavarian village circa 1850, because that's where my Meisters came from. That's what I told it to do, that's what it drew. And then I could go through and say, well, it shouldn't be that kind of church, or maybe they didn't have horses then, or the houses were all smaller. It's a chat. You can iterate and go back and forth, and it'll make changes. Yeah, you got that right, but no, that's wrong. Again, the caveats. It can access some real-time information, but it could be generating, collect misleading answers. Again, you want to control the input to the extent possible. It can provide confident but inaccurate summaries. It sounds good, but is it really? So by constraining it to work only with material you know is true and explicitly telling it what you want it to do, then you can be more confident with the results. So don't worry about all these crazy things you hear that's going on and doing. You want to be in control. What's going in and what you want it to do, and then iterate with it. So here's Claude, which is a competitor to ChatGPT, named after Claude Shannon. It's developed in Europe, and their privacy laws are a lot more strict than ours, so it has a little bit greater emphasis on privacy. And we should mention, you really don't want to talk about your family or complain about your spouse or your neighbors or put a picture of a living person up there, because again, anytime you hit send, it's up there in the cloud for everybody. So pay attention to that. Maintain the privacy. You'll hear sometimes talking about different models. You can use the free version. These all have free versions. Then the paid versions start at $20 a month, and you can go month by month. Sonnet is what they call the tool you'll be using. There are some other versions they have, Opus and Haiku. Usually you have to pay the subscription, but you can get a couple tries at it with the free version. Claude can do translations either way, into English, from English, and lots of different languages, particularly the European languages. It can generate, create, edit, enhance images. It'll ask, when you ask about recent events, then it'll go out and look at the internet, which ChatGPT really quite doesn't do yet. Normally it doesn't, but I'll show you there's a little button you can tell it if you wanted to go do that. So here's Claude, and here's me interacting with it. Nowhere does it say you have to give it your actual name, your birth date, or your location. So I'm Terry Coulter. You can see on the left all the other chats I've had with it, that I can recall any of those, or at the top there it says start a new chat. And there's a line, what do you want me to do? There's a little place where you can go through and switch and look at different tools, and a little button down there, search internet. You can flick that on or off. Do you want to look on the web for most current stuff or not? You can tell it. You can go through and pick models, and I get Sonnet because I have the free version. With Opus, I can get 3 times before the end of this week, and now I'll probably have to wait a month, and it'll give me a couple more free trials. Transcribus, I mentioned, doesn't do translations, but it will do the text recognition. You can upload handwritten or typed documents. You can do free up to 100 a month and generate the transcriptions. It uses emphasis, particularly European languages. It works well. Has handwriting and text recognition, so it can read things that maybe you can't. And it can look at historic documents, give you an idea of what it thinks it might be. It's good at cursive handwriting, with kids in school now can't read, right? Because they don't teach it anymore. These are German languages that they used up to the time of Hitler. He didn't like those languages, those writings, and that printing, so he changed it. So everything up to them is in that old handwriting, and you can learn how to read it. In my high school German, we learned how to write our names in it. It can do handwriting to text. It can take an image in the text. So here's Transcribus. This one, it knows it's me. In quick text recognition, because I do German stuff, it remembers that. But you can go through and say, I want the German giant, I want the Duchess. The English Eagle will do British documents. Text Titan is a super one, which means, oh, you want that? We'll let you try it, but then you got to pay by a month or a year. And for a year, it'd be 100 euros. So But again, the free ones work for just about everything I've ever needed to do. DeepL is another translator that's getting better and better. I was just on a call today with our International German Genealogical Partnership, and we do a newsletter that is part in English and part in German, and then they translate the English parts into German for our German partners and the German parts into English. And DeepL does most of it, and then the editor will say, okay, somebody look at and see, does it get anything wrong? And she's saying there's fewer and fewer cases of that. It can give it to you in a Word document or a PDF or a PowerPoint. You have a limit on the free version of 1,500 characters. And it lacks extensive language coverage, so some of the stranger languages it may not handle, but it's good at European. And here's Google Translate, which has gotten a lot better over time. On the left, you can paste in what you want, and nowadays it doesn't have to be text. It used to be you could give it the URL of a website. A lot of your web browsers now, if you right-click, it'll translate in English for you already. But you can give it images or documents as well. And these are all the languages it does. And there's Afar, Fawn, Luo. I had no idea what those even are, but it can do reasonable translations as well as all the reasonable subjects. Gemini by Google. Again, this is the big thing. Notice the top, try our new image editing with Nano Banana. That was the code word they used as they were developing it, and it just got released last month. And it's a little bit different as an image editor. Again, you click the plus sign. This is consistent about a number of them. I'm going to upload a file or an image. I can look at the tools. Do I want to do it that deep research? Do I want to create an image? I could get in-depth answers with the search, and the little microphone over there, you can chat with it. You can say, Gemini, draw me a picture of a small village in Bavaria in 1850. Or ask it another question, it'll give you an answer, so you can talk to it. But here's this image editing, and it's a new thing it does. You tell it what you want to do with an image or create an image. You have to have an account. You have to be 13 or older. It can create an image or it'll work with one you've got. It can generate new images. And its claim to fame is it tries to keep the person the same when it's doing this regeneration. Like I say, people are still finding cases of, oh, they have a third hand, where that doesn't really look like their faces. But again, I said, okay, let's give it a try. This is a picture of me that was taken a year ago at a high school reunion, and we were having it at a Polish club. So there's a TV in the background, and there's me. And I wanted to sort of a more recent picture because I lost about 70 pounds in the last 2 years. So I said, okay, and it's officially Gemini 2.5 Flash, or Nano Banana. Change the background to medium gray. Sure, here's the image. Okay, still kind of looks like me. It hasn't really done anything to me. Change the shirt color to black. Got it. Here's the updated image with the black shirt. And I have a shirt already that has the Germanic Genealogy Society logo on it, but I didn't want to have to go and put it on and then take a selfie and all. And I said, it'll combine images. So I'll say, here's an image, put this on the left side of my shirt. And it read the image and it said, sure, here's the image, Germanic Genealogy Society added. And it really hasn't changed my face really at all that even I can tell. So these are kind of things you can do. Like I say, sometimes it goes off and does weird things, but you can chat back and forth with it. Microsoft Copilot, it's in the Bing search engine, Microsoft Edge, and with Windows 11, when you upgrade to that, there's a little button on the left, whether you want it or not. And they now have a keyboard. If you get the latest keyboard, you have a button for their artificial intelligence. So it can use their image creator on the free tier version. And in the handout, I have an example here of how you could use it to use obituary transcriptions, to go through and read them, and again, sort them out as well. So here's Copilot, what's on your mind today? So here's Perplexity. So again, this is one of the ones that will do the deep search and give me lots of sources. Where are you getting the information? It goes out and scours the web every day. It's got those spiders out there. And again, its big things is it gives you current information with sources. And it'll suggest follow-up questions. You can give it text, images, or PDFs. Now you have to be careful, there are different kinds of PDFs. So you have what you think is a PDF that can be read by a computer, and you give it to it, and it says, sorry, I can't read that PDF. You said, it's a PDF. Well, there are different kinds. And you don't know the differences? Go into one of the artificial intelligence and say, what's the difference among the different PDFs? And it'll tell you. Okay, so how do we begin? Pick one of these apps and sort of get familiar with it. It's a chat. So you give it some basic directions, as explicit as you want. Ask it questions, it comes back, then you tell it some more, and you just go back and forth and chat. And it's free. You're running just the interface on your computer. You're not downloading anything to your computer. It's all up there in those big computer centers they're building now. It'll give you a prompt for the best results. You want to give it a role, a task, output format, and limitations. You want to be specific. You're controlling it. So, and if you're not getting what you want, then try another tool. They're all free. So a good prompt is give it a role. Act as a genealogist. Act as an expert historian. As a translator. Tell it what you want it to do. Give it a task. You want to summarize a document, transcribe it, extract information, translate it, organize it into a table or a spreadsheet. What format do you want? Table, list, graph, picture, poem. It can write poems for you. Spreadsheet, you want that PDF, HTML for the web, or computer code. And again, I'd be leery about having it write code that I haven't proofread before I run it on a computer. And then limitations. Often you want to say, don't make things up, don't get creative, don't get humorous, use only the information provided. Tell me about any words you don't understand and I'll help you with it. Don't try to guess. And then you iterate. It's a chat. This is something just came out last week. This is one software. There's Family Tree Maker a lot of people use. Roots Magic is another one, and I've heard a lot of professionals use it. I have them all on my machine because people ask me questions about one or another. This is the first of those. I expect the others to follow. You've put a tree up there in your software. You've picked a particular individual of which you've given it some information, and now you want to have artificial intelligence, one of the tools, look for it. So I want a prompt. The prompts are the important thing. So it now comes through and says, we have a prompt builder built in. So you pick one individual and say, give me the prompt builder. You can't quite see this. I'm saying, act as a professional genealogist, summarize key life events for a genealogy hobbyist, and I only do up to 1,000 words. It's my limit. Don't write me a book. And it will do it. So here it's sort of starting with the role. You're a professional genealogist. Summarize the key life events for the individual specified. Use only objective details provided without introducing. This is the software writing the prompt for you. And again, you can ask the AI tools, what prompt should I use? And then on the right, you can pick, do you only want that individual? What else do you have on the tree that you want to give to the AI tool? Spouses, children, parents, or whatever. And it will go through and do it. Some other cases. Act as an expert genealogist. Where can I find vital records, birth, marriage, and death for what is now Collin County, Texas? Include records generated before Collin County was formed. And I asked ChatGPT for that. So that's what I asked it to do. And it says, sure, I'll act as your expert genealogist. Here's a quick summary. Go to the county clerk, look at the state health services for the vital statistics in Fannin County, because before it was Collin County, it was part of Fannin County. And here you can see the actual sources, where it's getting this information, so you can go back and check. Is that really true or not? And this one will give you the links to it. So more, it's still scrolling down. Here to go, the county clerk, what they hold, Department of State, vital statistics, pre-Collin County repositories. Notice the state birth deaths from 103. Well, if you go on Family Search Wiki and look, and a lot of the Texas guys, it says, yeah, they required it in 1903, but it took them a while before they got around to it. And you can actually find for LBJ, in his birth certificate, he's Baby Johnson. And finally, when he was running for vice president, he had one of his aides come back to Austin and say, I think we need to put his mother and father's name on this. So, church records, other places it suggested you go for this vital information. Federal and commercial sources, Family Search, Ancestry, MyHeritage, local places. There's that post-1903, what you could expect the late 1800s to 1903, before 1846, before there was a Collin County. It's telling me all this from just what I asked it to do. Practical checklist, where you might want to go, might you want to do. It's doing this all for you for free. Local organizations that can help, the Historical Commission, the Genealogical Society, county clerks in the neighboring counties. Sometimes you didn't get married because your parents didn't want you to get married, so you snuck across the county line and got married over there. Or maybe it was just easier to get to that county courthouse than travel halfway across the land to get to your own. Ordering and privacy notes as well, if you want certified copies. Normally, as genealogists, we don't want that. And then it finishes up with this. I could give you a research plan for an individual. Tell me who, where, and when. So all this from just the one direction I gave it. Look for other suggestions. I was giving a talk in North Carolina, and I was looking for maps that showed towns and who owned each plot. And there's Sanborn maps that are used for fire cases. But in Pittsburgh, I found particularly this other company, GM Hopkins, did a lot. So I said, where can I find some of them online? I'm asking Claude. And at that time, this was a few months ago, ancient time in artificial intelligence history, said Claude can't search the web. Well, guess what? As of March, it searches the web. And then I said, well, where can I get them in North Carolina? So now it's giving me some details. The North Carolina collection, the state archives, those Sanborn maps. Okay. And it'll go through on Perplexity now, which will give me, search the current web and give me lots of sources. So up here at the top is already 5 sources of information. And it talks about Historic Pittsburgh, which is a website, University of Pittsburgh archives, the David Rumsey collection, that's the library in Chicago, Library of Congress. Many Pennsylvania counties have them. The Cleveland Public Library could have them. And again, there's all the little footnotes. It's telling me where did it get that information. And at the bottom, there's all the links. So I can go and check. All for free. I just had to ask the questions. You give me what I want the first time, you iterate. What's available for North Carolina? And it gives me things for that. Okay, German memorial card. Here I'm saying attached to Transcribus. The image is a funeral card for Barbara Meissner from 1896. It's written in German, printed in the Fraktur font. I'm trying to give it as much information as I can to help it. Acting as a historian. So it says, okay, now I'm thinking historian, not a painter or a poet or a comedian or whatever. Transcribe the text of the card. And I'm saying please, and it's not a person there, it's a computer, but do you say please or not? And it goes through, and again, it won't translate it, just transcribes it, but there it gets its transcription now. And then I could go into Claude and say, please translate. And it gets most of it really well. What about ChatGPT? I always had a little trouble at the top where it said Jesus crossed, Mary crossed Joseph, and what came across in the translations and the transcriptions. So somehow we got the Feast of the Seven Sorrows of Mary. So not quite right, but then I could go back and say, no, that's just a cross in Mary's name. And it would say, oh, okay, I'll change that. So that's how it learns. DeepL is another translator. I can go through, and again, look what it does. So you can compare and shop around. They're all free. Abstract of a written will. McClory's were my great-great-grandparents. John McClory got married in Ireland in 1837 before the famine. Got on the boat, they got married, they had essentially a wake because they knew they'd never see him again. These are 20-year-old kids. Came across to Philadelphia, rode the canal across Pennsylvania till they got to the mountains. There they had an old railway with steam hoists that pulled the canal boat up one side of the mountain, lowered it down the other side, and then they rode the canal into Pittsburgh. And that's why then my Carneys, who married the McClorys, settled in Pittsburgh because her brother was there. And then how those great-grandparents, my Meister great-grandparents, their offspring met, and here I am. So, but they moved on to Illinois. Pittsburgh in 1850 was getting too big. There's like 50,000 people. Oh, this is getting too big. Let's go to Ohio. So they're ready to move on to Illinois, but it was the election for 1860 for Lincoln. They had young boys of Army draftable age. So the story is they stayed in Ohio to vote against Lincoln in 1860, because if he got elected, which he did, there'd be a war and their boys would get drafted and be killed or maimed or who knows what. Well, a number of them did survive. Then they moved on. He died. And then later on, 1887, she dies. And here's the will. And it starts down there and finishes over there. So now I've got two images. So I can't go into those tools that only will take one image, like the ancestry. So there's the will, all handwritten. So I'm going to give it a prompt. These two images are the first and second parts of the will of Bridget McClory. Act as a genealogist. Generate an abstract of the will. I don't want a translation or a transcription. I want you to abstract it. Use only the information. So there's the role, the task, the limitations, what I want it to do. And here it starts out. Here's the date of the will, the residence in Illinois, age at time of will, she's 70, the standard all lawful debts paid. We put that in all our wills, right? You all have wills, right? So, to the son Michael, I'm going to give him this property, and he has to pay $100 to Father Augustine. To Henry, I'm going to give him property, and he has to pay $150 to his sister, Mary McNamara. To Thomas, and get this chunk and that chunk, and Michael and brothers Peter and John are going to give you money. Peter and John, you get that, but give some money to Thomas. Edward, you already owe me $60. You owe your mother $60. She remembers. Henry has to give $1,000 to the covenant for masses for her. This is, again, what was that, 1887, $1,000. She's got to be in the highest tier of heaven there might be if she's got that many masses said for her. And her children take charge and all that. So it's summarized the will for me. Again, all for free. I just had to give it the images, do the little prep work ahead of time, clean them up. Compare and contrast individual profiles. This is where you get really technical. But things you can do, and you got a link, and I'll show you to a YouTube that would explain how to do this. I have a tree on Ancestry. I have one on Family Search. I have one on MyHeritage. I've got one on Find My Past, because that's the British parts there. But they're not all the same. What if I want to make them the same? So I want similarities, differences, conflicting informations, recommended next steps, and then let me know if you'd like help verifying or researching any of these details. It comes back and says, do you want me to do that? And then I say, oh yeah, we could do that as well. So here I give it, I've downloaded from Family Search, Andreas Meissner, that's my great-great-grandfather, and there's what I have on Ancestry. And I give it these two documents. And says, these are the profiles, compare and contrast, let me know any information missing or conflicting, advise the next steps. And it goes through, it says, well, here's what's the same, here's some differences, here's some additional information in Ancestry, not in Family Search, that I might want to use. Next steps, resolve conflicting dates, enrich the Family Search profile, verify information with primary sources, search for additional documents. So, and again, this, you have the link in the handout to this YouTube if you want to really dive into things. This is a complex task, but again, it'll do it for free. You just control the input, tell it exactly what you want it to do, and it can produce that for you. So, verify critical information, check the sources. It got it from the internet, so it must be true, right? It got from another family tree on Ancestry. It must be true, right? Acknowledge limitations. You're going to sometimes need a person, an expert to help. Cite appropriately. If you're getting this from artificial intelligence, it's helping you write up a book for your family. Say, I didn't write this all by myself. I got help, or it did the whole thing. And if it does the whole thing, then you don't have any copyright to it. The courts have already ruled that. And there were cases where one attorney had it write up a whole document for the court, citing case study, which never really exists, and somehow the judge figured that out and said, you're out. Respect privacy. Don't put up information about other people or even yourself unless they know about it and know what's going to happen. Do they really want to? Respect intellectual property. It's gone out and scoured the web, so don't you just go grabbing lots of stuff off the web, whether it has a copyright or not. If I create something like this presentation, I have the copyright to it. I don't have to apply for a copyright. I already have it. And for one of these 1-hour presentations, it takes me about 100 hours to put this together. This is even more so because they were changing things last week. And I thought I had it all done. Consider bias. Again, you know, it's going to have a European slant to it. It may have an American slant to it. Does it have a Hispanic slant or an African American slant or whatever it might be? So be careful with that. But that's my presentation. Again, there's my email. If you'd like to have an electronic copy of the handout, send me a message with the understanding in January, or excuse me, thinking ahead next week, not next year. Next Sunday, I fly to England for 10 days. So,
Questions? Questions, comments, protest? Okay, George.
Waiting for the microphone.
Question being, this is an uneducated question. I recently went to Okmulgee, Oklahoma, and filled out paperwork to get my a part Indian family heritage, to get my Indian card.
Mm-hmm.
It is on the way. Will this help with American Indian research? You mentioned a lot of nationalities.
Yeah, to the extent that there are documents there. Now, you could have even say, I want to apply for in Oklahoma, what do I have to do? And it would tell you of all that stuff and maybe even give you links to the documents. You've already done that. So you can say, yes, right.
Let's go into those names and see what happens.
Yeah, with the information you have, you could say, this is what I've got. And again, you can ask it, what should I be asking you? What can you tell me about Native Americans in Oklahoma? If you have particular names, if you have a location, what tribe it may have been. They were probably involved in the Trail of Tears, coming from North Carolina across. When did they settle in Oklahoma? So again,
Fort Gibson, Oklahoma. It was the first establishment.
okay, you're saying they were in Fort Gibson, Oklahoma? Yeah, so, right, when was the fort established? Why was it established? Why did the Native Americans end up there? What sort of support? Were there any documentations? Was there an Indian agent? Did he keep any sort of records? Where might those records be? What about censuses that they did of Native Americans? Not only in the federal census, Oklahoma was originally part of Missouri. They went in and did the census for those Indians who were not taxed. And then finally, later on in censuses, they decide, well, even the tribes that aren't taxed, we're going to start counting them as well. But learn about what records might there be, why they might be in certain records, might they not be in others. Right, so you can get a lot of suggestions and ideas by just asking it for assistance with that.
Questions? Hold on.
So for the prompt builder there, which tool does it use after you fill in all your blocks and you hit go? Which tool does it use?
Which tool for which one?
Well, like Claude, you know.
What was the first part of your question?
Yeah, on the prompt builder, you had that little new tool for the prompt builder.
Oh, right.
So when you fill all those boxes in and hit go, which engine does it use?
Oh, whichever one you want to put it in.
Okay,
It
so
is,
you get to choose.
that's the case of that software, Roots Magic, will sort of craft a prompt for you, but you can just write your own and go through and you put in any tool you want. Again, there's free versions of just about every single one of those. The one thing on Nano Banana, because it's the big thing that this came out last month, it's part of Gemini. So you want to go into Google Gemini, because I found if you just do a Google search for Nano Banana, you'll get things with URL .io, which stands for Indian Ocean, which is, I don't think, the website I want to go to. I want to go to Google Gemini. And then in there, you can say, I want to use, it's Flash 2.5 or Nano Banana as it's called. But no, you can put the prompts in, you can craft it, and any of these tools, they will always come up with that little, what do you want to know? But the thing is, again, it's not Google or Bing where you're just going to give it one little set and it spits back. You can type sentences, paragraphs, pages, again, giving it a role, a task, what form of output, what limitations you want to put on it, and then you're going to iterate. It'll come back and sometimes say, well, what would you like me to do this? And you could say yes or no. No, try that. No, you got that wrong. Where'd this extra person come from in the picture? Or there's one case I saw, somebody had been injured in the war and lost part of his ear and part of his arm, and they had the picture of him. And when they said, enhance the picture, they gave him an ear and an arm. I said, no, he didn't have those, take those out. So then you iterate. So, but yeah.
That's incredible. Questions, comments, protests?
I'm all new with this, so I'm trying to figure out how I get all this information into a tree, right? So that it looks like a tree that I can follow, because otherwise I'm gonna end up with 50,000 pieces of paper. I know I will, because I'll stack it and I'll have her help.
Okay, so you're just starting out, you've got some basic information you want to create into a tree. Okay, you can ask it for help. Like I say, you can say, this is me, this is my father, this is my mother. If you have information, know when people were born or died or married and the like, you can give it all that information and say, draw a tree for me. And the artificial intelligence can do it. Yeah, as you're collecting information, yeah, so where do you keep your tree? Okay, like I say, I use Ancestry. You do not have to have a subscription to Ancestry to create a tree on Ancestry. They would love you to do that because then they'll say, I got some hints for you. I got some hints from you. Give me some money, I'll give you the hints. But you can go to the library and get some of them there. You can, get some software. There are free software, like there's one called Legacy that's completely free. And then it has an upgraded version that you can just start to put the information in and organize it and say, start with yourself, then your parents, you work back with generations. Don't forget your brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews. Be careful online putting information about living people. Now, Ancestry says they will not share information about living people. And if you haven't put a death date in and they were born more than about 80 years ago, they'll decide they're deceased. So, but that ends up in the census now. If you're 72 years or older, I'm in the 1950 census. It's out there publicly now. So, but yeah, to get started and, join a local society. And then as you start to find information from another location, maybe look into what they have. Go to the library. You're going to get a new library soon. And librarians love to help people with that, and they can help you get started. But like I say, you can go into any one of these artificial intelligences. Says, I'm new, and I just want to start entering information. What suggestions do you have? And it'll give you some ideas. And again, you decide, do you like that idea or not? So, but yeah, find some other folks that can give you some help and maybe even work with you one-on-one as a starting point.
Speaking of, how many of you are in the Collin County Genealogical Society? They are a co-sponsor of this program, so that's an organization for you to join. Also, there's at the Senior Recreation Center, isn't there a local genealogy society? Anybody there? Questions,
down
comments,
front.
protest? Questions? Just a curiosity. Is anybody willing to try to do tonight, just a simple one that you like to see him play with, and so he can give you an example of your situation? Anybody? Go ahead.
I say, well, my computer's over there, not connected.
Exactly sure what he would need to do that.
I'll bring the computer to you.
No, I've got them all on my phone too,
No, I'm going to own everybody.
Oh, well, situation I'm running into. My father did a lot of genealogy work before he passed away, and I'm trying to pick up where he left off.
Great.
Finding out that certain key information that he thought he had was wrong. For instance, I think Ancestry and Family Search both had my great-grandfather born in Germany. The record that I eventually got from Immigration and Citizenship says he was born in Russia.
Okay.
So I'm in the process of trying to track him down in Russia to find out exactly where he was born in Russia. I have the dates and everything from the document that I got from citizenship. So, I have that much, but trying to read the town or region or whatever of Russia, it's like impossible. So I would have to use some kind of a translation software, I would think, to give me an idea.
So you
what
have
that
it
is.
as a document, the piece of
Yes.
paper?
Yes.
Okay, you can create an image of that and give it to one of the tools. You get them for free and say, this is from, whatever the record might be and what time period. And
Right.
it mentions a town in Russia. Can you tell me what town that is? Can you transcribe the record?
Right.
And then finding the town, you can say, okay, well, what information do you have from Germans who were born in that town? There is also here locally a Germans from Russia genealogy group. And they focus particularly on that. There's Black Sea Russians and there's Volga Russians. Again, it was Catherine the Great. They lost a lot of people in wars, so she invited the Germans to come over. Some did come there, some went other locations, and then they settled. And again, did they settle on the Volga? Did they settle around the Black Sea? Were they Catholic or Lutheran? They had one side of the river was one side of the river was the other. What church records might there be available for that? So, and get that sort of information. Another place, a great place to look, I mentioned Family Search has its wiki, and they have over 100,000 documents now written by experts on all sorts of different locales that might be of interest to you, that can also give you some basic information. So again, you want to learn about the time and the place, what was going on, and why was that place there, what records may have been kept, why were they collecting the records. We wanted to draft people. Well, I don't think you want to know about me. We want to tax you. Well, how much was that really worth? So you have to consider those sorts of things as well as you go through. But again, you can do this there's a number of online resources. There are free webinars you can find. You can learn who are the reputable people, because there's YouTubes about everything and anything. And you go to any event in the world now, everybody has their phone up taking videos. Where are all these videos going? And why are they will they ever look at them again, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful about where you're getting your information. So it's a trust but verify.
Did that help?
Right.
There's
There's an email address. You can send me questions later.
I was Lloyd Bachstruck at the Dallas Public Library, who's now gone, but he was my mentor when I got started 45 years ago. And man, he drilled into me about primary source documents, wills, whether it was probated, whether it was in their file, was it filed with the county, census records, and so forth. I was glad to see that you had links that, with all this information, it gave you the links to the primary source documents.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really cool.
That's for certain of the tools. ChatGPT doesn't necessarily do that. So
One last question. Comment, protest. This is your time to get free genealogy. Other times you might have to pay for it. Thank you all for coming. Dr. Wisner, thank you.
thank you.